What part of your life needs resurrection? So we're looking at 7 reasons why most people don't want to engage in missions. We're looking at them from the lenses of I am. Jesus made 7 statements about I am. Some call them claims, but actually they were true, and they're still true until this day. We're also looking at how did most characters in the Bible respond to God's call? There are many others who, in words of today, chickened out, but later went about doing the task, like Jonah. But how did the other guys, like Moses, Abraham, Isaiah, and Samuel, respond? They uniquely would respond by saying, Hineni, here I am. So the Hebrew word, Hineni, which of course means here I am, it just shows the humility, the availability, and the willingness to serve God. So Jesus then makes these 7 statements and says, I am. So we are unpacking all of them in light of missions, in light of his mission, by the way. So as we are unpacking these statements, we are looking at Jesus's purpose and our calling. So tune in. Today I want to introduce you to a very good friend of mine. His name is Simon Yeomans, all the way from Great Britain, but he's also serving in missions here with us in Canada, one of the leaders. He's very sincere and is very passionate for missions. He's going to be sharing from the bottom of his heart. I would like you to listen very carefully. You're going to learn loads of things about missions.
Hello, my name's Simon, and the topic for today is I am the resurrection and the life, and this comes from John chapter 11 verse 25, which I'll read. So Jesus said to her, that's Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? I suppose when I read that passage, I think immediately about living forever and going to heaven. And probably we tend to use it in that sense a lot of the time. If we believe in Jesus, then we will never die. We might die physically, but we will live forever in his presence, starting now. But it also, I think, if I sit back and reflect on that passage a little bit, it also reminds me of how God can use us and redeem our situations in life to help us to come on board with his mission for us. I grew up in a middle-class family in England. I was one of 4 children. I have 3 siblings, 2 in the UK, 1 in the US, and we were basically a hard-working family, generally did well at school, and we worked hard, and that was expected of us. And I left school, went to university, and studied for a few years, and got to a point where I was pretty confident in my own ability. And as is the case for many of us, I think, when we're in our 20s, we want to change the world, and we have big ideas about our future and how we're going to make a difference. And that's quite right, and I would encourage that in anybody. I think when I think back to my adolescence and my young adult life, I can remember people saying to me that a lot of what I did well in. I succeeded. Even I have a very good friend who used to say I had the Midas touch. In other words, that everything I did seemed to turn to gold almost, that I succeeded, that I had a good attitude, and that was very positive and very encouraging to me. And so when you embark on that kind of journey in life, I think it's very easy to get a bit cocky and a bit overconfident and think that we're going to change the world. So when I got into my 30s and got married, and then a few years later, when my first marriage broke down after 2 years, and my first wife left me, I think it was something that completely broke me personally and broke those dreams to the point where I had to reassess who I was and where I was going. I don't think that's too much of an exaggeration, but it was a real crisis point in my life. And I think when we go through those kind of crises, because we all do, not necessarily in the same way I have done, but we all have crises in our lives, we can question our usefulness to God, especially if we're Christians, and really wonder whether we're up to the task that God has given us to do. And we can just give up, I think, at that time, or just assume that God is not really looking after me, or doesn't really care for me, or I can't go into missions, or there's certain things that I can't do anymore because, in a sense, we're damaged goods, to coin a phrase. And I think for me personally, I probably went through a lot of those feelings, and yet through the support of friends and my church, I think I would say that the word redemption took on a new meaning for me personally, to the point where a few years later, God did call me into missions, a dream that I'd had since my early 20s, and this is like 10, 15 years later. And I felt in a position to be able to take that up. And I feel that God has really breathed life into a dead dream, I suppose, a dream that had died. God had resurrected it. So to come back to the verse that I read at the beginning where Jesus says, I am the resurrection of the life, for me, it's really a case of not just living for eternity, but God redeeming our failures and lacking the strength to do what we want to do, and bringing us to a point where He can use us and redeem us for His purposes. And so I pray that He would continue to do that, and He would enable us to live in that life each day that we serve Him. So I'd really encourage you, if you're at a point today where you feel that things are not going right, just to reach out and ask God to redeem that situation and help you to get through it. So thanks for listening. Have a great day.
We had promised you real stories from real people about missions. You know, it just shows that we all have things in our lives that need resurrection, that need life in order to engage in missions. You see, God wants the whole of us to serve the whole world. In fact, as it was said in the Lausanne Congress, the whole church taking the whole gospel to the whole world. God wants to resurrect all things for Himself. So, thank you again. Tune in next time.